The Texas sun bled across the horizon like fire spilled over the land, baking the earth until it cracked and steamed. The air shimmered in waves, carrying with it the low hum of cicadas and the scent of dust, sweat, and horses. Jake McAllister had been out since dawn, rounding up the stragglers from the north pasture. He was bone-tired and dust-covered, ready for a meal and a quiet evening when the scream split the air. It wasn't the cry of a coyote or the panicked whinny of a horse. It was human, sharp and desperate. Jake dropped the reins without thinking and sprinted toward the sound, his boots thudding hard against the dry earth. "Clara!" he shouted. The name tore from his throat as he rounded the corner of the old barn, heart slamming in his chest. The barn doors were half open, the interior dim and streaked with rays of sunlight filtering through the gaps in the wood. Dust floated in the air like fine smoke. And there she was, Clara Bishop, sitting on the ground near a bale of hay, one boot off, gripping her thigh with both hands. Her face was pale, and her breathing came in sharp gasps. "Jake! It bit me," she said, her voice trembling. "The snake. It was right there." Jake's eyes darted to the floorboards. A rattlesnake, fat and angry looking, slithered toward the shadows, its rattle buzzing low before it disappeared through a hole in the wall. He dropped to his knees beside her. "Where?" "Here. My leg," she stammered, pointing shakily to the upper part of her thigh. His stomach tightened. The skin was already red and swelling fast, two angry puncture marks standing out vividly. He didn't waste time. "Hold still," he ordered, his voice low and steady, the kind of tone that didn't invite argument. "Jake, it hurts," she whimpered, eyes glistening. "I know," he said, tearing a strip from his shirt and tying it above the bite to slow the spread. He'd done this once before, years back when a ranch hand got bit near the creek. He remembered what the doctor said. Act fast, stay calm, and don't panic. But this time, panic was clawing at the edges of his composure, because it was Clara. He'd known her since she moved to town last spring, a newcomer with quick wit, stubborn eyes, and a knack for getting under his skin. And now she was shaking in front of him, venom burning through her, and he was the only one who could help. "Jake," she gasped, "please, suck it out." He froze for half a second. The words echoed in his head like gunfire. He'd heard it in the movies, read it in old cowboy manuals, but doing it was another thing entirely. Still, there wasn't time to think. "All right," he said finally, voice rough. "Hold on." He leaned in, pressing his lips to the wound. The taste of copper and dust filled his mouth. He drew hard, then spat into the dirt, his heart hammering with every pull. Again and again, until his chest ached. Sweat beaded on his brow. The barn was silent except for her ragged breaths and his low grunts of effort. When he finally pulled back, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, he looked up at her, ready to tell her she'd be fine, that he got it, that she was safe now. But the words caught somewhere deep in his throat. Clara wasn't looking at him in relief. Her eyes were wide, not with pain, but with disbelief. Her lips parted, trembling slightly, as a flush of color crept up her cheeks. Jake blinked, confused, still kneeling close, his hand on her leg. "What is it?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. But she didn't answer right away. The air between them seemed to thicken, the dust motes frozen in golden light. And then her breath hitched. Quiet, startled, and uncertain. That's when Jake realized something was very, very wrong. Jake's heart still hammered in his chest, the echo of panic and adrenaline roaring in his ears. He stared up at Clara, sweat sliding down his temple, chest heaving from the effort. But her face, her expression, made him freeze. She wasn't gasping from pain anymore. She was staring at him like she couldn't decide whether to scream, laugh, or die of embarrassment. Clara, he asked carefully. You okay? She blinked once, twice. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her hands were still gripping her thigh, knuckles white. Then, finally, she spoke, softly, almost a whisper. Jake. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. That wasn't where the snake bit me. For a full 5 seconds, Jake didn't move. Didn't breathe. The words hung in the air, thick and electric. Then his eyes widened, his mouth falling open as the meaning hit him square in the chest like a kick from a mule. He slowly looked down at where he'd just, acted fast to save her life. And then back up at her face, which was now glowing red enough to rival the barn's rusted tin roof. Oh, he said, voice cracking like a dry twig. Oh, hell. Clara covered her face with her hands, groaning in pure mortification. I tried to tell you. It was lower down. My ankle. Jake. My ankle. Jake staggered back onto his heels, running a dirt-streaked hand through his hair. Well, you said your leg. He protested, half panicked, half defensive. And you were grabbing at your thigh. What was I supposed to think? That I wasn't bit there. She snapped, then groaned again, hiding her face. Oh my God. I can't believe. Jake, I can't believe you just. I thought I was savin' your life. He shot back, standing now, pacing a short line in the hay. His boots scuffed the ground nervously. You can't blame a man for actin' quick under pressure. She peeked through her fingers at him, cheeks still crimson. You could have asked. I did ask. He said, exasperated. You said, here, and pointed. Don't go blamin' me if your directions were unclear. For a long, awkward moment, neither of them spoke. The barn was utterly still except for the faint rustle of hay and the distant whinny of a horse outside. Then Clara, still flushed, started to laugh, just a small, helpless sound at first. Jake looked at her, half in disbelief. You're laughin', he said. She shook her head, biting her lip, her shoulders trembling. I can't. Oh God. Jake, if you could have seen your face. He huffed, trying to hold on to his dignity, but the corner of his mouth twitched despite himself. Well, pardon me for tryin' to help. Clara finally met his eyes again, and this time her laughter softened. You did help. Just, maybe not where it counted most. He chuckled under his breath, scratching the back of his neck. Guess I'll, make sure to clarify next time someone yells, suck out the venom. Next time, she said, arching a brow, still amused. You planning on a repeat performance? Jake grinned sheepishly. Not unless you invite me, Miss Bishop. That earned him a scandalized gasp and another laugh, lighter this time. The tension that had strangled the air a few minutes ago loosened, drifting away like dust through the sunlight. He crouched down again, this time carefully, and examined her ankle, the actual bite mark, just above her boot line. The swelling wasn't too bad. He let out a breath. You'll live, he said softly. Looks like the venom didn't get deep. Clara exhaled, finally relaxing. That's good to know, she murmured. Then, with a teasing smirk, added, though I think the trauma's permanent, for both of us. Jake chuckled, shaking his head. Well, I reckon I owe you an apology, and maybe some ice for wherever you're sore. Maybe both, she said, smiling now. They sat there in the warm quiet for a moment, neither quite knowing what to say. The whole absurd scene replayed in both their minds. His frantic urgency, her horrified realization, and the fact that they'd both somehow survived it without dying of embarrassment or venom. Finally, Jake offered her his hand. Come on. Let's get you to Doc Carter. He'll know what to do. And maybe he'll clear my name while he's at it. Clara took his hand, her eyes glinting with laughter. No promises, rancher. As he helped her up, their fingers lingered just a moment too long. The air between them warmed again. Not from the sun this time, but from something new, unexpected, and alive. Out by the barn door, the last glow of sunset spilled across the dry plains, the rattlesnake long gone. But Jake knew this was one story neither of them would ever quite live down.